Hello everyone and welcome to Heart and Hand Extra, our second weekly free show here from the team at Heart and Hand, where we discuss what's happened since our Monday flagship show, and unfortunately a lot has happened this week and not much of it positive. Here to discuss it with me is Heart and Hand's very own ray of sunshine, Mr. Martyn Ramsey. Hello mate.
Hi David, how you doing?
I think I sound like one of your well-timed and lower register sighs this week after what I witnessed at Ibrox on Tuesday night. A season-defining game, we said before it, and unfortunately that may well prove to be the case as Rangers went out of the Scottish Cup with a dismal display against Aberdeen, losing by 2-0 on a freezing night, gusting winds, driving rain. It was everything that makes up one of those miserable occasions for football fans that you store in the memory bank and try to justify with the belief that it will make the success all the more sweeter. But as I was leaving the ground on Tuesday night, that seemed quite far away.
Yeah, everything that went wrong pretty much did, or could go wrong did. I guess the worst thing, I've seen far better Rangers sides lose at home unexpectedly in the Scottish Cup. That's cup football. That's what happens sometimes. But the most worrying thing was that a lot of us knew after 3 minutes that it was over. This Rangers team, this Rangers manager have given us some great nights, some great afternoons. All in 2018, I think, but they have given us something to hold on to. Not sure how many times they have been able to change the tide of a game. And, shit happens in football. That was I'm sure Aberdeen's game plan was to try and nick something. I don't think you can plan for being handed a goal with a fucking bow on it, which is what they got. But those things happen, 25 yard shot that deflects in, the other end of the goalkeeper, and anything can happen in football. It's about managing it. It's about being able to adjust and just change the flow of a game. We don't do it. I can't remember the stat. The other week anyway, it was about maybe 21, 25 games or something that we've gone in level at half time, and about 4 of those we've won. So if we aren't setting the tempo, if we aren't dictating the way the game's going to go early on, we generally won't by the end. And that's, I wouldn't get bogged down on a particular bad wet windy night in the Scottish Cup. It's more this inability to affect change.
It's I'm sure there are stats guys out there who'll be able to tell me if I'm talking nonsense or not, but just based on feel and anecdotal evidence of being at the games and watching them, I really do believe, with this Rangers team inside 5 minutes, what kind of afternoon we're going to have. And to your point, after 3 minutes, I was sitting at the game with Cammy, a fellow Heart and Hand podder, and we both looked at each other with that, oh fuck. And I consider myself an optimist. But in my heart, I kind of thought, that's us screwed, and that's bad after 3 minutes of a cup tie at home for Rangers to ever be. And as you say, the goal that we gave away was gift wrap. I was speaking with a friend and compared it to, how Michael Hutchins died?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, well, as good as it might be to get the end result that you're after, you've got to play risk-reward, I think, right? And okay. What you get, had Michael Hutchins been successful in what he was doing, I don't think is as good as the risk that if it goes wrong, what can happen. And I would say that that's exactly what Glenn Kamara did with his pass right along the edge of the 18-yard box, that even if it comes off, I don't think it's going to have been worth taking the risk of what you did. It's one of those old football cliches that, you're told as a kid, never pass along your own 18-yard box, but you are, and for good reason.
Will Stranglewank make it into Michael Cox's upcoming tactical tome?
It's a good you can have that title for the book for free.
It would be it would be a ratings winner. No, you're absolutely right, and it's the first time we've seen it with Kamara, but it's not the first time we've seen it this year. Maybe not quite as deep, but there was a similar issue that allowed Jones in against Kilmarnock.
Flanagan in Russia.
Yeah, of course.
That's just off the top of my head. I could name 5 or 6 occasions off the top of my head where Rangers have conceded by sloppy passing in around their own 18-yard box.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's listen. There'll be Rangers fans that will absolutely get on the back of the team about absolutely anything, but you can accept the risk reward in and around their 18-yard box as you're trying to find that cute pass, that killer move that's going to create you an opening, and it might not come off. In fact, it probably won't, but you keep trying it because that's where risk reward is. You're absolutely right. There just was no need for it.
Hasn't put a foot wrong up till then, to be fair. And I'm not getting on him. It's just in general, I don't like when any footballer does it. I just think it's a kind of pointless exercise.
You're totally right. I'm in total agreement. And I guess what we would be ill-advised to do is kind of focus on that. If that's with 3 minutes to go, and it's 0-0, then okay, I can more accept the narrative that a Kamara mistake has knocked us out of the cup. But we've got plenty of time to sort it.
Oh yeah, we'd 87 minutes to do better. I think that it says a lot about our performances against Aberdeen this season, though, that the fans did immediately go off. But what was more worrying to me was that the team did. I didn't get the sense throughout that match, and I've watched it back since, which was pretty painful, that the team believed they were going to be able to overcome this. I think Aberdeen have got into their head with the win, the 1-0 in the semi-final and the 1-0 at Ibrox. I think that Rangers believe that if they concede to Aberdeen, it's going to be incredibly difficult to claw it back. What disappointed me was they had done this at Pittodrie.
Yeah, and that I go back to the times where we have either gone in at half time behind or still level and frustrated. The times where we have recovered it: St Johnstone away, St Mirren away, up at Pittodrie away. There's, I'm sure, one else. It's away from home, and again, although it's not anywhere near as bad as last year with the amount of home defeats we had, there's still this thing at Ibrox that if we're not on song early, that feeds into the support and it feeds right back at you, and that jersey just gets a wee bit heavier again. And I don't think it's any surprise.
Crowd, I don't think it's this 11. They are this squad. They are reactive to the crowd, I think.
Yeah, and I don't think it's any surprise that when we have managed to change a game, it's been away, and the away support is slightly different. And we've said it umpteen times. Playing for Rangers at the best of times is very difficult. You and I have seen a Rangers manager going for 8 domestic trophies in a row and failing and getting dogs abuse for it.
Mm.
It's a tough gig, and it's made even tougher in these circumstances when we are starving.
Yeah, and that basically at the frustration levels among Rangers fans, which I think you can see in the sort of immediate bloodletting that follows a bad result, and certain people calling for the manager's head, which I think is premature. I'm not going to sit here for a second and say he doesn't have questions hanging over him that he's got to answer, and if he can't, then he will be out. But I don't personally believe that making a change every 6 months or every 7 months, when it becomes clear you're not going to win the league, basically every summer you start again, I just don't think is a recipe for success. I get the counter argument. It's like, well, does that mean you persevere with the wrong man? But no, but you have to give people time to develop into the job and learn. I do accept the argument that Gerrard doesn't seem to be learning. What I would say is sometimes it's difficult when you're in the maelstrom of game to take a step back and do that. And I think that change is more an evolution process at Rangers rather than him going in on Monday and go, right, this is now, we've learned this lesson from the weekend. I think it's something that happens gradually. And we need to see if that can happen over this next few months is going into next season, because obviously we are a very long shot for the league title and out of both cups, which is incredibly disappointing. There's not really an awful lot to talk about in the game. Rangers huffed and puffed. Aberdeen were resolute, as you would expect. Rangers didn't create much. A Ryan Jack shot off the post in the first half, a couple of half chances in the second half, but never really significantly put Aberdeen under serious pressure. Although we did at least manage to play the game up in their area, which we didn't manage in the league match Ibrox, but that's scant consolation, and I'm not in any way offering that up as some sort of balm for what was a terrible performance. Aberdeen breakaway, clinically put away the second, and it was done. I think we all knew that it was done at that point. Much frustration. The manager chucked on Defoe and Davis and Lafferty, but by that it was just hitting hope into the box, hoping that something would drop, which it didn't. And even if it had, I'm not entirely sure I had a lot of confidence in us to put it away. The only real other issue of note was a booking for Alfredo Morelos, which would have ruled him out of the semi-final had we got there for simulation. At the game, I couldn't see it, to be totally honest, not to be too Arsene Wenger, it's just I'm up the other end of the stadium and it's very difficult to see if it was a dive or not. From watching it back, I don't think it was a dive. I certainly don't think it was a dive. You could argue whether or not it's a penalty. I do wonder if other strikers, if it is a penalty, but it's certainly not a booking. Martyn and the club, I think, have appealed it on a point of principle. I think people are asking why they've done this, considering that it looks unlikely that Morelos will be here for next season's Scottish Cup campaign. But I think that the club are quite right to highlight again that he does appear to have less leeway than other players when it comes to things like that.
Yeah, they're right to do so. There is no real practical value to it, I would agree. But the principle is correct. You hear it often, don't you? Well, if it's not a penalty, he should get booked for diving then, shouldn't he? But it's not always either or. There can just be tangles.
Yeah, and similarly, you can have a dive that's still a penalty. You can have someone who gets clipped and then goes down in overly dramatic fashion. Yeah, it's not an either or. It was
a nothing. That's what it was. Having looked back, I'm buying the middle of the govern. It certainly didn't look like a penalty, and I think we knew that, but certainly having the advantage of watching it back, it's just one of those that's nothing. Neither way. So the club, they're absolutely correct. And yes, we've talked this to death. I think the Morelos thing, it's will continue to rage on for as long as he's here. It's nothing new to football. It's it's a story that's been told many times that the players, they either cultivate or other agencies cultivate a narrative around them, and that almost automatically, subconsciously, creates a situation where the referees view things in a different way. If you wanted to be kind about it.
Yeah, I don't. But moving on to then where this leaves us in terms of this season. One of my pet hates is the phrase, where do we go from here? We go to the next game. It's football. Yeah. Let's not pretend that this is, a foreign army have invaded. This is, we get on with it. It's incredibly disappointing. But in terms of the manager, he's been eliminated from both cups by Aberdeen. It's incredibly disappointing. We've pretty much fallen apart in the league since Christmas, or since rather the winter break. 2019 has been pretty disastrous, and at the moment, the immediate priority for me is you've got to stop this slide. You've got to. Yes, I know we had that little run of results, but it was against teams you would fully expect us to be hammering. We now won't have that because we've got Kilmarnock, we've got Celtic, and then we go into the final 5 games of the season when it's going to be the top 6 teams. So Rangers' immediate priority is to try and slay a few self-created ghosts, I think, this year, or a few self-created monsters, which is a piss-poor record against top 6 sides, and an ability, as you say, to string together results and to come back in matches where we don't start well. There are immediate issues that need solved, but for me, the bigger question is, Martyn, the manager has this season spoke a lot about players he trusts. We know certain ones he means where he'll say, he's a great, I know what I get from him, etc. But these are the players that are still letting him down.
Yeah.
And I'm not having a go at him for his selection the other night. That's the team that I think most of us expected. But the concern was, we've tried this against Aberdeen, it hasn't really worked, bar one match. So what's going to change here? The answer was nothing. And he does appear to place a lot of trust in guys for whatever reason, because they're always fit, because they'll play through pain, because they're good guys, because, all the things that affect any relationship you have in any job as a manager with your staff. But these are the guys that aren't delivering in the crunch matches. And regardless of whether or not, you like the players, and I have actually noticed that the certainly compared to previous squads, there are a lot of fans who like individual players in this squad, but the results don't lie, and that's always the biggest arbiter of how they're doing in football. The fact is that we go into these matches with certain guys who the manager himself has held up as key players, and it doesn't happen. So the logical conclusion is they're not good enough for the trustees placed in them.
No, but it's fair, as is people rightly pointing out that we're a point better off than this stage in the league last season. That ignores obviously the big strides made in Europe, but it's going to be an interesting couple of months for him now, because we know what happened last season. League position quite similar, and we lose that key Old Firm game at home, and the season unravels. And if he wants, and presumably he does, to be a success here and to have a much better season next season, he really needs to find some kind of momentum to finish on. And if he can get to the summer, say, okay, the Aberdeen issue, and it's become an issue, 1 win in 6.
Yeah.
That's something we will go and consider so disappointing to go out both cups in that way. But we are comfortably second, if this is the case by the end of the season, which it really needs to be. We have got to Europa League, which is huge in football terms, even more important financially. We've beaten Celtic, hopefully more than once. That's progress. First season in the door, a lot of new faces. I'm new to this job, blah, 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 blah. That's something to at least cling on to. If it unravels like it did last year, because effectively nothing else to play for now, and if you lose that drive and momentum, whatever, then that's going to be an awful hard sell if, I don't know, we scrape second place or worse. That day I spent in Villarreal it was going to seem an awful long time ago, if the season kind of peters out in the same way. So a big test, another big test for him, and who knows, maybe they'll play with a wee bit more freedom because the pressure's off. I don't know. It's going to be a really interesting period of time, and you're absolutely right. It's almost as if the criticism while we were in Europe, and I don't think it was valid because it's understandable, he had to rotate because we're playing every 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But since Christmas, I think we've had an idea of what he sees as his first team.
Mm.
And we do Seagulls, the EPL show on Patreon, and we talk about teams, of course, with a lot less pressure on them than Rangers, who go through some troubled times, but Bournemouth, for example, and they do not change. And there's something in it that a manager sticks with the players he trusts, and that trust is rewarded eventually for a lot of those teams. So will he go back to that kind of flip-flop thing? Will he go back to chopping and changing? Yeah, very, very interesting. But he needs to just salvage something. And if that is another Old Firm win, and it is saying, look, we were comfortably saying, you've not had that since coming back up. we are in the right direction, but it's it's going to take some time.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we sit here, I am of the school of there has been progress, just not as much progress as we need or want. But with 9 games to go, it can go one of two ways. Absolutely, it can. And if it continues, and I think if we're sitting here right now, the most reasonable expectation is there'll be a few wins, a few draws, and a couple of defeats, because that's what this season points to.
I think I've said it on a few pods and a few forums or whatever. I think any Rangers manager, unless they're an absolute disaster, which clearly that's not the case, he needs 2 seasons. 2 full seasons, 4 windows. We cannot keep chopping and changing. Unless it's going to be bankrolled by mega money, to expect someone to turn this around in a season or 6 months just isn't going to happen. So I'm more than prepared to allow him the time. I still have the same concerns I had when he walked in the door, and those are tactically and the ability of such a huge superstar name to be able to understand the mere mortals that he can afford, and to properly get inside their head and motivate them, because they look terrified.
Yeah, they did. They absolutely did.
No, for the first time. So those are 2 big things that he has to have a think about over the summer. I know you don't agree, but I do wonder whether having someone on that management team who has actual success in the job they do wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, because they're all rookies. Souness had Smith, and I think that's important personally.
Does it have to be someone with success or knowledge, though? That's my point, because I mean, Ali McCoy's success as an assistant manager.
I totally understand your point. Obviously, it still needs to be the right fit and everything else, but we're a very, I was going to use the word green there, obviously not, quite a fresh and inexperienced club from this, the chief exec down. There's not many with experience of actually doing the biz. And that makes it doubly hard. And Gerrard will be under pressure next season. I think we have to go back to Scott Simon to find a Rangers manager who's been successful, who hasn't won something in their first full season. And I don't think that's peculiar to Rangers. I'm sure Celtic would be kind of similar. The Old Firm management job is very hard. And if you don't get off the ground running, it has been almost impossible.
That's my concern, especially if you're thinking, right, we need to bring someone in with experience of winning the league in Scotland. Well, you really, you don't have anyone recently because it's been Celtic, so you're not going to hire any of them. And then you go back and it's Walter, Ali, Kenny McDowell, Archie Knox. I mean, that's it. It
doesn't need to be Scotland right enough, but it was just a thought. Everyone here, and most of the players with the exception of McGregor, Davis, Lafferty, there's not a lot of people experienced in success in their actual role. And it just makes it that wee bit harder. And I know the situation that, and it's why I've as time's gone on, started to get a wee bit cringy when we do keep going back to 1986 but I know that situation is very, very different in many ways, and just so happened that Souness had a perfect option as number 2, because the opportunity for people in Scotland to win things was obviously a lot more open.
Wider,
but I'm more than happy to give him the time to allay those concerns, and that's all they are. But there's a big job on.
Barn disaster, he gets another year, but it's what he does with it. And I think that you mentioned there you've still got questions. That's because they haven't been answered yet. There has been evidence for any position you want to take with Steven Gerrard, hasn't there? There have been highs and there have been lows. There have been things he's done well and there have been things he has done badly. And at the moment, I don't think that we have enough in any direction to make a conclusive decision, which is why I tend to go, right, well, okay, we need to give him more time and see if we get a clear picture of what's going to happen. If we're in this situation this time next year, he'll probably be gone. But if there's an improvement, great. Immediately though, we travel back to Ibrox on Saturday to take on Kilmarnock, a team that we've had up and down results against this season. No love lost between the two sides. First return to Ibrox since his it depends how you want to term it, I suppose, but since his interesting evening and reaction the last time he was at Ibrox for Steve Clarke, there's going to be a fair bit of needle in this match, Martyn.
Aberdeen the same kind of boat, aren't they? Just in terms of the sheer number of times we've faced them. It's not a game I'm looking forward to. They just never are at Ibrox. Apart for the replay, which I was ill, so maybe you better hope I picked up.
You want to take an afternoon off on Saturday, maybe.
They have been the past couple of seasons really brutal games. The weather's going to be just as bad, I think, as the other night. It looks absolutely horrific. So it's not the game he wants to see, I don't think, in terms of this final run, it just trying to salvage something even psychologically. And I guess like the cup game, and like so many of our games at home, repeat the point I made earlier, early goal, or this could be a grueling afternoon. Because early goal changes pretty much everything.
I think he was onto something the other night when he said that he knows what the atmosphere is going to be like on Saturday, that people are going to be turning up angry because of what happened the other night, and the atmosphere will be muted and will be that way that it is after a big defeat in a match. So at least there's that expectation rather than getting any of the rubbish that we sometimes get about, we need the crowd to be bang up for it and stuff. Reality is that the crowd will be here we are now, entertainers. And you're right, the team have got to come flying out the traps. The concern is that you don't know. They might, and they might not. And that's, I think, the worry. That what really concerns me is I don't think if he knows.
No, he doesn't. And you're right to be concerned. We did one of the live shows in Kilmarnock in October. It was before the Aberdeen semi-final. And I had that feeling that this Rangers team remind me of a good cup team. They remind me of a team that on occasion is absolutely able to deliver something special, and that's why I'm so disappointed with the cup defeats, because I thought we'd won maybe both of them. Didn't think the league was ever on, because no chance were we going to get the consistency required. But we've kind of been let down in some kind of key games, I guess, that early in the season we hoped that, you could see Rangers dropping silly points. You could see the odd draw creeping in. But if something happened, right, Rangers, they need to get 3 points here today, or they need to obviously, go through in the cup. They're going to raise their game. And maybe even that ability to rise to the occasion seems to be disappearing, which is concerning as well. I think you're absolutely spot on. He doesn't know, we don't know, and we'll just have to see if the players know.
2 questions in one to wrap up. Do you, would you make any changes at the weekend? And 2, do you think that he will, either in terms of personnel or structurally?
Second question, I don't think he will. And this is where it becomes interesting, because I thought we're all kind of agreed that 3 in the middle against the better teams is important. We tried that diamond at Rugby Park, and it has turned our season on its head. So I don't think he'll start like that. In terms of personnel, this is part of it. He's probably even looking at the bench. Personnel requires system change, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
Maybe with the exception of McCrory for Jack, McCrory for Kamara, or something like that. I think in the absolute centre of the park, you've maybe got a few options. McCrory and Davis instead of Jack and Kamara, whatever. Candace is a worry at the moment. That breakaway opportunity that we had
in the first half.
Yeah. He doesn't do that a few months ago. He hits that first time right into the path of Morelos, and we know what will happen. Funnily enough, his brilliant goal at Hibs was almost just like frustration at the quality of his crosses not really hitting the mark, and he's like, fuck this, and just put his laces through it.
That's exactly. I mean, if you actually look, he misplaces a pass, and it comes back to him. And
it wasn't the first time. It wasn't the first time.
He just goes, "Oh, fuck this," and lashes it into the top corner.
Yeah. So there you go. There's a problem area, but who do we replace like for like and maintain that three up front?
I think it's now a legitimate question to say, look, it's your job to get Defoe or whoever into that side, right? And otherwise, why did you bring him in? Because we didn't need a substitute striker in the January window, so get him in the team. Basically,
we needed another.
No, but work out a way to do it.
Yeah, I know. It's called managing, I suppose. It's in the title. Yeah, we needed another striker because we were light on in that area. But again, it comes back down to the system thing. Morelos doesn't get taken off, and he can only really play in the system that we have, I think. So if you are going to play Defoe, you might as well play him with Lafferty and as a two, and then kind of work round that. That's the problem. Is that the players he's brought in, or the players he has at his disposal on the bench, require a formation change. And he did try that against Kilmarnock, and it didn't work. So, and it's been a problem we've had, David, for the past couple of years. Is that we do have other options, but they require a complete change, and they have an impact on the rest of the team. You know what I mean? People were making a case for 3-5-2 a couple of years ago, or at the beginning of last season or whenever. But Tav and Candace had such a relationship, and it was so in sync and so productive that you couldn't do that, because then there was no way of keeping them in the team or utilising that relationship. So that, for us as lay people to chat away on a Thursday evening is one thing, but we're not getting paid quite a hefty sum to find those solutions, and that's what we need to see before the end of the season in order for us as a whole, as a club, as a support, to I guess carry over the goodwill and the credit that his stature and his charisma and some genuinely great afternoons and evenings have already provided.
Yep, I would totally agree with that. Okay, folks, thank you very much for joining us. We will be back on Monday with the flagship Heart and Hand show. If you want to hear from us beforehand and you want quicker reaction to what happens on Saturday, for example, then just visit our Patreon site. It's patreon.com/heart and hand. You will enjoy it. It's only $1.99 per month, and you will be thrilled with the amount of content you get for that. I promise you. That's patreon.com/heart and hand. All that remains for me to do is thank our executive producers in London, Mr. Mike Lee and Paul Miles, and to thank my guest today, the always very interesting, I enjoyed the conversation there, Mr. Martyn Ramsey.
Pleasure, David.
And we'll be back on Monday. Until then, have a great weekend, and hopefully Rangers will begin to try to put things right. Until I speak to you again, take care. Bye-bye.